So something I've been thinking about lately is UBI, which is Universal Basic Income, and I first became aware of it while watching the Joe Rogan podcast of Andrew Yang, and he's making it a massive part of his platform for the Democratic nomination for president. And it is a really interesting idea, and on the surface it sounds pretty good, doesn't it? You know, Andrew Yang's idea is every American over 18, regardless of income, will get $12,000 a year or $1,000 a month. You know, that sounds pretty good, and the way he phrases it is it will alleviate a lot of the economic pressures on people, and with a lot of automation coming to various industries, it will help people, you know, be a bit more stable while they look for another job and everything. But because of the people pushing UBI, I've become a bit more sceptical of it. But first, I want to read an article from The Guardian where the Labour Party of the UK have been considering UBI. So I'm going to read a quick article from The Guardian that says, Labour would trial universal basic income if elected. John McDonnell says, Shallow Chancellor says the pilot schemes would be held in Liverpool, Sheffield and the Midlands. So it goes on to say the plan would do away with the need for welfare, as every citizen would be given a fixed sum to cover the basics, whether they are rich or poor, in work or unemployed. McDonald said people can spend the money how they like, but it is intended for study, to set up a business, or leave work to care for a loved one. And he goes on to say, I'd like to see a Northern and Midlands town in the pilot so we have a spread. I would like Liverpool, of course, I'm a Scouser, but Sheffield have really worked hard. I've been involved in their anti-poverty campaign, and they've done a lot around the real living wage. I think those two cities would be ideal, somewhere in the Midlands. So then it says trials have been held elsewhere in the world, including Kenya, Finland and the US, as well as potentially being explored in 4 Scottish cities. So under UBI, all the means-tested benefits, apart from housing benefit, would be taken away, and every adult would get a fixed amount per week, plus an additional amount for each child they have. So this is interesting where it changes. So the Labour Party will take away some benefits and replace it with UBI. So unlike Yang, it says here, you'd get more universal basic income for every child you have. So it's similar to child benefit in a way, because you're getting it added onto universal basic income, and it won't replace housing benefits. Whereas, you know, people are speculating Yang's might replace everything, which is obviously not very fair. So McDonald goes on to say, of course it's a radical idea, but I remember when I was at trade unions campaigning for child benefit, and that's almost like UBI. You get a universal amount of money just based on having a child. UBI shares that concept. It's about winning the argument and getting the design right. So McDonald's saying the reason we're doing it is because the social security system has collapsed. We need a radical alternative, and we're going to examine that. We'll look at options, run the pilots, and see if we can roll it out. If you look at the Finland pilot, it says it didn't do much in terms of employment, but it did in terms of well-being, things like health. It was quite remarkable. So yeah, the Labour Party's version of it sounds a bit better, doesn't it? Because it increases based on if you have children, you don't lose your housing benefit if you rely on that and stuff, and then everyone gets it. But what my concern is that UBI is the last sort of desperate attempt to prop up the current consumer capitalist system, because like Andrew Yang says, what is UBI for essentially? So you have an extra £1,000 a month or $1,000, and what are you going to spend that on? So some people, they'll spend it on, I don't know, their rent, they'll spend it on necessities, but at the same time, where is the money mostly going to go? Probably private industries. People are going to spend it on, like shopping, people are going to spend it on goods, people are going to spend it on maybe holidays, people are going to save it up for other things like cars, and what does this all contribute to? The current capitalist system that we're living in. But why am I so concerned with the current capitalist system? You know, what would the alternative be? Well, my whole point is, at the current moment, 100 corporations emit 70+% of total CO2 emissions in the world, right? And we're not changing the system at the moment, and we're giving UBI to people to help prop up this system. In my opinion, it's sort of like a general subsidy for the capitalist industries and stuff, because you're giving people more money to spend to them so they won't go out of business, because everyone's going to have extra income now. Everyone's going to have £1,000 or $1,000 a month to spend as how they please. And like we're seeing, it's not just poor people and people who super need it, it's middle class people, it's wealthy people. Obviously to extremely wealthy people, another $1,000 is not going to make a difference. But to people who are in the middle class, you know, it's money to spend on things, you know, they want to do, and maybe some more luxury things. And at the end of the day, there is no real ethical consumption under capitalism, but at the current moment, when so many corporations are polluting the world and essentially destroying the world, because we can't save this planet without fundamentally changing the capitalist system at the moment, whether that's reforming it or whether that's getting rid of it. Because in an ideal world, in a free market world, in people's view, you know, the people who love the free market, what everyone would do is flock to these new green energies, and they'd all compete to create the best new green energy for everyone. So there would be massive competition to make cheap electric cars so the consumers could have them. There'd be competition, you know, for government contracts on making more efficient power through green means and stuff. But that is not what is happening in the world. And if we have UBI, it's just more money for all these industries, and it's just going to extend their lifespan. You know, whether that is the car industry, having more money to pay for car stuff, or just buy a new car, save up your UBI for a year where you might not have been able to buy one in the past. And that is my problem with UBI essentially, because it props up all these bad things. And Andrew Yang is interesting because he talks about all this reform, but I don't know if I trust him so much, because he is part of the class that have made their money or things like that, and he seemed like a decent guy in terms of what he's done with his money. But he is part of that class who will really benefit from UBI in general, because UBI is done based on the economics, right? In this case, John McDonnell is saying it'll be expensive, but it might be good for society. But in the US's case, you can kind of be a bit more skeptical, thinking it's probably because a lot of, you know, industries are probably going down if people are poorer. And if everyone has more money, it will really stimulate them and keep jobs and everything, and just keep the capitalist system running in America. But that is my general concern. But if Yang's UBI gets rid of social benefits, I don't support that at all, because if you're getting rid of what people rely on, the poorest people rely on, and using it to give everyone money, people who don't need it, millions and millions of people who don't need this money, that's obviously not a fair system. Because then people are essentially voting for Yang to strip the poorest of what they need the most and the money they need the most, and give it to people who don't need it to stimulate a capitalist economy. That is essentially it. So I don't know if I'd support that at all, because if you're not giving people social benefits on top of UBI, or your UBI isn't taking into account people's standing, like John McDonnell's saying, if you have children, your UBI will be more, and it won't get rid of the housing benefit, that's a bit better, isn't it? But if it gets rid of all of that, and it's like, here's $1,000 instead, but you used to get more because you needed more, then I don't agree with that at all. Anyway, this is just a small take on UBI. It's not definitive. I haven't done massive amounts of research into all of it, but it just, you know, a sort of first impression, on a surface level impression from me watching interviews of Andrew Yang and reading some articles about it. So if you have a strong opinion on it, please put it in the comments. I would really be interested in what people have to say more than other times, because this is something I'm not so sure about myself, and I've kind of gone back and forth in my mind about what I believe in it, because initially I thought it was a good idea, but now I'm getting a bit more skeptical. But anyway, if you like the video, please either like, maybe subscribe to the channel. I live stream every Sunday at the moment, so come check that out on Sunday evening. If you want to find me on social media, follow me at The Cavernacle on both Twitter and Instagram. I also have a WordPress blog where I occasionally write some stuff, so check that out as well. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.